Hey guys, welcome back. Today I want to talk about my top 10 favorite DACs that I've listened to, that I've tested, that I reviewed over the last couple of years. So we're going to get right into it. Number 10, my 10th favorite DAC that I've heard over the last couple of years is the Denafrips Pontus II. Now this is a direct sales model DAC. It's sold direct from Vinshine Audio. They're made in Singapore. The price point of under $2,000 US for the Pontus II is remarkable because when I reviewed it, when I had it in my system, I thought it sounded way more expensive than it is. It has a refinement, a smoothness. It is a R2R ladder DAC, so it has that unique, laid back, but yet ethereal, big holographic soundstage. The Denafrips Pontus II. If you're looking for a DAC and your budget's up to $2K, take a long, serious look at the Pontus II. So number 9 is an oldie but goodie. It was actually at one time a favorite piece of mine, like top tier favorite piece. Quite a few years ago, more when it was newer, it's now being phased out for a new release, is the PS Audio DirectStream DAC. What I loved about the DirectStream DAC was that it was upgradable, and PS Audio upgraded it every now and again with new firmware and new software, which literally changed the sound presentation of the DAC. It was made well, it was hefty, had nice casing, had a nice screen, and you can add a bridge to the DirectStream. Mine had the bridge, which would allow you to stream and have a DAC all in one device. At the time when it was released, a lot of reviewers used the DirectStream as their reference, and a few people actually said that it was the most analog DAC they heard up until that time. The DirectStream DAC can be bought today. You can find them used at some place like the Music Room, tmraudio.com, no affiliation. They always have refurbished and used DirectStreams there for great prices. Be sure to check it out. It is a lovely DAC, and PS Audio did just update it not so long ago with the final firmware update. So number 8, the number 8 DAC in my favorite list is the Chord Qutest. I owned the Chord Qutest for a couple of years. It was my main DAC for a while, especially when we were moving and I scaled down the system when we lived back in Arizona. And then we came here. I kept the Qutest. The Qutest has some high energy, some really good detail and Pratt, right? Pacing, rhythm, timing. I think that's what Pratt stands for. I might be wrong on one of those. But it's a get up and boogie kind of DAC. It's not the most fluid or bass heavy DAC. It's kind of light footed, but it also does have some weight in the mids. I really like the Chord Qutest. It gives you a flavor of the detailed high energy chord sound. And I believe the Qutest is under $2,000 as of today. It's in a little metal black box. It has a little cute color coding scheme with the buttons. I really enjoyed my time with the Chord Qutest. It is their entry-level DAC, and it gets way better as you go up the line to something like the TT2 or even the Dave. So let's move on to the next DAC in my favorite list. Next up on my favorite DAC list is actually one that I didn't expect to be here, but it was actually a fabulous DAC. I had it in for review for a while. I did a written review of it. I don't think I did a video review, but it is a $30-some hundred DAC that sounds more like a $5,000 DAC. And that is the HiFi DSD Pro Signature. Now, I wasn't a huge fan of the styling and looks with the gold and silver. It's a little blingy looking for me. But this thing had a new old stock tube in it for that tube sound. You could activate the tube. You could run it solid state. It had some really cutting edge filters. And this DAC sounded really good. It's also a streamer as well, all in one. So you can stream direct to the DAC with, say, Spotify Connect, Tidal Connect, or you can hook up a streamer to it if you want to go the whole Rune route, or you can hook a streamer up to it as well. The sound was expansive, a little sharp. It did let some of that digital sound through. I knew I was listening to digital, but it had a wide, vast, expansive soundstage. And depending on the filter I chose, it went from kind of relaxed and welcoming to dynamic and sharp. It was a very cool DAC, very interesting DAC. A lot of users, some reviewers swear by this DAC and claim that it can sound as good as a $20,000 DAC. Now, do I think that? I think it sounds as good as a $5,000, $6,000 DAC. The HiFi Pro DSD signature is well worth the asking price. So number 6 on the list is actually a unique DAC. It's a tube DAC from LampizatOr. It was the Amber 3. They have now upgraded to the Amber 4. And the Amber 4, the Amber 3 that I had was kind of the entry-level DAC into the LampizatOr universe. Now, LampizatOr has the Pacific, their big $20,000 reference DAC, and they have quite a few in between. But for me, the Amber 3 had a warm, rich, yet vibrant presentation. It was a little lit up, but it had energy. Now, the only thing I didn't like about the LampizatOr Amber 3 was my unit had a little bit of a buzz coming from it, and sometimes tube gear does that. It was slight. I didn't really hear it at the listening position, but it was there, and it was emanating from the device itself. But sound quality, it had some of that tube goodness, but it also sounded like some of the better qualities of solid state. I wasn't a fan of the way the DAC looked. Actually, I thought it was rather ugly, the Amber 3, but it was a really great sounding DAC. Performance punched above its price point, which at the time was $3,500. I think the Amber 4 is now over $4K. But the Amber 3 and LampizatOr in general make some really lovely sounding DACs. All right, number 5, my number 5 most favorite DAC that I've heard over the last 2 years is the Niagara Classic DAC. Now, this is another DAC that's been discontinued. But I was able to find one used. I bought one used to, scratch that itch, that curiosity within me about Niagara. And I had the classic amp, the classic DAC, the classic preamp, and it was a beautiful system. I feel that Niagara's a teeny bit overpriced for what you're getting, but I can't argue with the sonics, the build, the style. You either like that style or you don't. But the Niagara DAC had a natural, big, wide open presentation. It was a little soft on the top end, but that gave it that big, like, welcoming sound. There was no fatigue with it. It was detailed, and it brought out a lot of detail, but it wasn't ever aggressive. So the Niagara Classic DAC, it just has a nice organic sound to it. It's not the most bass heavy or meatiest DAC. It doesn't have that thickness that some DACs do, but it still offered up a lovely, airy presentation. That is the Niagara Classic. Now we're in the top 4, guys. Now, my top 4 DACs, these were very hard to pick because I really think all 4 of these are fantastic and world-class sounding DACs. So let's go to number 4. Number 4, and I just boxed it up today to send it back, the review unit. It is the Denafrips Terminator Plus DAC. Now, this is a beast of a DAC. It's big, it's heavy, it means business. You can get it in silver or black. It's all metal. The build quality is insane. The front panel is curved. It looks sexy. It looks beautiful. But what about the sound? That's what I fell in love with the Terminator Plus. This is the flagship DAC. I believe it comes in at over $6,000 US. I'm not sure of the exact pricing right off the top of my head, but this is a DAC that sounds more like a $10,000, $11,000 DAC. It uses the R2R architecture. It's a ladder DAC. Therefore, it's a little more relaxed than some chip-based DACs, off-the-shelf chip-based DACs. And it just has the most holographic, laid-back, relaxed, wide-open presentation I've ever heard. Now, with some music, it can be a touch warm or laid back, but for 95% of music that I listen to, the Terminator Plus blew me away on a daily basis. I spent the last couple of months almost nightly listening to the Denafrips Terminator Plus, using that Grim MU1 streamer as the source into the DAC. Was an absolute match made in heaven. If you're looking for a reference DAC, but you don't like the high end screaming out at you, but you still like the details and you like that holographic 3D presentation, you might want to take a look and a listen to the Denafrips Terminator Plus. It's a beautiful DAC and one that I can easily recommend. Punches way above its price. So number 3, we're getting into the top 3 here, and I have to award my number 3 favorite DAC to the Chord Dave. Now, the Chord Dave is polarizing. A lot of people think it's the best thing ever. A lot of people think it's too strident, too detailed, and too in your face. It takes careful system matching and speaker matching, but because my speakers are semi-warm, right, the Fleetwood DeVille SQs, they have a nice big mid-bass airy presentation, but they're warm leaning. So the Dave really worked well with the Fleetwood DeVilles. The thing with the Dave is it portrays music almost like a special effect at times. Some of the details jet out you in a 3-dimensional way that startle you a little bit. Some details are a little on the bright side. I don't want to say bright because that's a negative thing in hi-fi. A little more on the high energy side, the treble. It will really, really be noticed. Those cymbal hits and crashes and any little sharp sound like that can jump out into the amazingly 3D sound stage. This is the most 3-dimensional DAC I've ever heard. It's the most microscopically detailed DAC I've ever heard. It doesn't let anything hide in the music, and it does really well with really well recordings. If you have subpar recordings, they might sound a little flat with the Dave, but the Dave, many years after its creation, is still one of the top DACs in the world for music listening. It's not everyone's cup of tea. That's why auditions are a must when it comes to high-end audio products. The Chord Dave, though, is really going to be a legendary DAC. I think it's already hit that legendary status. Some people have had it since day one and never moved it out of their system. It is a highly resolving DAC, and because of that, it does things that no other DAC I've heard does. That doesn't mean there aren't DACs that don't do it, because I have not heard every DAC ever made, but the Chord Dave is among the best I've heard and comes in at number 3. So what is number 2? What beat the Dave for me in the number 2 spot? The number 2 spot for me in the favorite DAC list of the last couple of years is the Weiss 501, the Weiss DAC501. Now this is a small box, but it includes some really cool features that can help you tune the sound to your room. It has an EQ, it has a de-esser, it has a vinyl emulation little thing that you can dial in if you want the warmth and expansiveness of vinyl. But the Weiss 501 for me hit it out of the park with the way it brought me into the studio to hear every little sound. It reminded me of listening to reel-to-reel master tapes. It's clean, the timing, the precision, everything was so correct. It added a little more bass heft in the mids and the lows compared to the Dave. And while not as 3-dimensional, it doesn't have that big wraparound holographic sound stage. There's something about music with the Weiss that just sounds right. But if you have bright speakers or speakers with a high treble energy, the Weiss could be a little hot up top. If you have neutral to warm speakers, it is pure magic. The Weiss DAC is one of the top DACs that I have heard. Number 1, the number 1 favorite DAC I've ever heard, and it's really no contest. I mean, it's such a night and day difference between every other DAC I've mentioned. It brings its own unique flavor, its own unique personality, its own unique magic to the sound. And I'm talking about a DAC that is this company's entry-level DAC. It's the best I've heard. I'm insanely impressed by it, and I didn't expect to be. Just recently, I received a DCS Lina DAC. Now, the Lina is meant to be part of their brand new headphone system that consists of the Lina amp, the Lina DAC, and the Lina clock. Right now, this is all together for 3 pieces. For a headphone listening set is $29,000. Absolutely bonkers if you ask me. But the DAC I was interested in. The DAC comes in at around 13 grand, give or take a few bucks. And it is said to be, if you took the Bartok, the DCS Bartok, which is a very popular all-in-one. The Bartok almost made this list, but I never reviewed it. I heard it, and I heard it when I had a different amp and different speakers actually, and it didn't synergize well, so I didn't review it. But the Lina is said to be the DAC from the Bartok with just the streamer and the DAC instead of the preamp and the headphone amp built into one box. When I hooked it up, I couldn't believe the sound that came from the system. And it was so much better and more pleasing than when I heard the original Bartok when that first came out. But again, it's a synergy thing. Today, the Bartok has version 2.0 software, and I think that will surpass the Lina DAC. Haven't heard it yet, but I hope to soon. The Lina DAC just brings such a presentation. It instantly sounds high-end, world-class. You hear what it did for me was smooth everything out, bring a precision but not analytical or etched sound stage. The bass, I gained like an octave of bass. It's like it improved my Fleetwood DeVilles. Like it woke them up. There's more bass hidden in there, and the bass is not booming, it's tight and controlled, but I kid you not, the body of the music is just so impressive while staying clean and correct, and everything just sounds right. Now it does everything you'd expect it to do. There's some three-dimensionality. The sound stage is huge, tall, deep, wide. The layering is the best I've heard. The texture is beautiful. The high end is perfect for my ears. It's not muted, it's not bright, it's just right. It's almost, I can't even explain what this little DAC has done in my system, but it's about the refinement, and that bass is just, it almost sounds like when I hook up something else, another DAC, it almost makes it sound broken. And I don't want to say that because it's not. If I never heard the Lina, I would think, you know, that the Weiss and the Dave and the Terminator were the best things ever. But the Lina is something totally different, and I think that comes from the DCS ring DAC technology. DCS have been doing this for 35 years, and they put quality in everything they do. We see these crazy high prices, but looking at the Lina at just around $13,000 for a streamer and DAC, and the sound quality and build quality and pride of ownership and the future updates that are to come and the customer service, the support from a company like DCS makes it worth it if it's in your budget and you have a high-end system that can support a DAC like that. You don't want to throw a DAC in if you have $300 speakers, a DAC that costs $13,000. I will have a review of the Lina soon. I started writing it, and I'm going to be listening to it over the next week or two, and I will finalize my thoughts, and I'll have full comparisons. I will also test it with the Grimm MU1 streamer, and then I'll test it with its built-in streamer. But so far, this DCS Lina has just blown my mind. It's almost like it's on another level from the others that I've heard, but it could just be that I love the way the DCS sounds, what it's giving me, right? I'll talk more about that in my review, but those are my top 10 DACs. Hopefully this video is not too long. I tried to make each one quick. I want to thank you all for watching. I love you all, and I hope you all have a great rest of your week. I'll see you soon. Bye.